quite literally just had a counseling session yesterday as a couple.
I am not going to live my life this unhappy.
The thought of being around you is pissing me off right now. I don't want to be anywhere near you.
I felt very isolated, and I felt like people told me marriage was going to be hard. People told me marriage was going to be different after a baby, but we're different because it's this extreme. Like, this is unusual how hard this is.
Welcome back to another episode of the Broom Tree Podcast. I have my absolutely amazing, lovely, sexy bride, Miss Amanda, out here with me today. I got to show you a little love. The comment section hasn't been very friendly to Miss Amanda lately, and so I want to shout you out that you are looking hotter today than you have ever looked in your entire existence.
Thank you.
And
I appreciate it.
I am madly in love with you.
Thank you.
So shout out to Miss Amanda. Last episode was your birthday.
Yeah.
So we got to talk about growing pains a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think God was testing us a little bit because, today's episode is a little bit more serious, a little bit more in depth.
Yeah.
And I think it's important. I hate it when people say that it's in depth and then like you never really know how it's going to be.
Right.
But today's episode is, I think so far we've only talked about stories or circumstances that we've made it through.
Right.
Today's is something we are currently going through.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to bring that up because it does. We really do believe at the Broom Tree Podcast that authenticity, vulnerability, honesty really is where we find our breakthrough.
Yeah.
Instead of suffering through a season and then telling people what God's done. I think that that's important. I also think it's important to say, like, currently right now as I sit here, I am going through something that's tough.
Yeah.
But so today's episode it's something that we are genuinely going through right now in the moment. We quite literally just had a counseling session yesterday as a couple, which isn't bad.
Right.
We'll talk about that, but just want y'all to know this is something we are currently going through, and we want to hopefully set the stage for when we say we want to be true, authentic, raw, vulnerable. We're not just Christians that say that and then tell stories about things that we remember going through or whatever. Like, this is a 2024 in the moment, what we're dealing with. Also, preface this while I'm thinking about it, we try and film in a different location as much as we can.
Yeah.
And so tonight we're giving it a shot and filming out back on our patio.
My favorite place.
Amanda's favorite place in the earth. It's unbelievably beautiful outside tonight.
Yeah.
But if you hear crickets, bugs, mowers, dogs, I'm going to try and edit as much of that out as I can.
The light changing.
But we are just enjoying, this is what it would look like if the cameras weren't here tonight.
Yeah.
We would sit out back. The only difference is the Supercross race isn't on the TV.
Right, yeah.
But this is what we do.
Yeah.
And especially in seasons like what we'll talk about tonight, this is what we do when we're going through stuff.
Yeah.
We sit down, we talk.
Yeah, and I think like maybe like being open and honest about like going through something currently is not for everybody, and I think that's perfectly okay. That's like a conviction on our, like God put on our heart specifically to do. And as we were talking about like what to do next in this podcast, I think it was kind of put on both of our hearts, like, and it was not an easy decision. I think we both kind of fought it of like, well, like we wanted to give kind of the bare minimum of what we were going through.
Yeah.
And we would be okay with that, but really diving into it, no one's ever comfortable doing that, you know? But we want to, I think God's stretching us and growing us in this season, and that's what we want to use it for. And we hope that maybe somebody else can find healing in what we're learning currently.
Yeah. And I think I put in our notes, because you said this as we were writing out this episode, we've spent so much time working on our relationship in the last few weeks that we haven't really had time to write out the next episode.
Right.
And so it was like, well, why not, like, let's just be honest with our listeners about, like, hey, we don't always have the episodes months in advance. We have a big list of potential episode ideas
Yeah.
and like this is what we want to do and this is who we're gonna the guests and things like that. But
Yeah.
writing out the finer details, any moment we've been able to focus on anything other than raising our daughter or going to work has
Right.
been spent working on our marriage.
Yeah.
And so you had said,
Yeah.
well, why not just dive into it and
Yeah.
just show them the progress we've made, the progress we have left to go,
Right.
all of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But I want to say this at the beginning: it is more than just marriage, though.
Yeah.
I typically we see headlines of when a message is directed for a specific audience. Anyone who's not that audience sometimes tunes out, and if you tune out, that's fine.
Yeah.
If you want to be married one day, I would suggest you hang about.
Yeah.
But I think some of the things we're going to talk about, a lot of them are marriage focused and like dating, romance, intimacy, communication, those kinds of things.
Right.
But I do think there are values here that we're talking about that apply in friendships, in business relationships, in family relationships, especially.
Yeah.
That are applicable for you if you're
Yeah.
not just in the marriage situation. We're talking about when people change over time, what should happen,
Yeah.
and how do you handle that, and how do you process
Communication.
new environments,
Yeah.
and different things like that. And so that's what we're talking about. Where we are tonight. Here we go.
Yeah.
The first thing
Let's
we
do
wrote
it.
down when we started writing these notes out was divorce.
Yeah.
And no, this is not our divorce. We are not getting a divorce.
Right.
We are actually pretty like kind of OCD on like we don't really joke about it.
Right.
We're not like one of those hyper couples that's like if you even say it,
Yeah.
it's like that's cool. Have your convictions. We're not really there.
Yeah.
But like it's not something we've ever like thrown about of
Yeah.
like I think the only time we've ever said it was like on the serious stuff. Like if you cheat on me,
Yes.
I might not be able to stay with you.
Right.
Or just like very severe scenarios like that.
Yeah.
But just fighting, like I hate to say normal, but like
Yeah.
regular relationship fighting. We had always said that with divorce just wasn't an option.
Yeah.
And so when we kind of hit our rough patch a couple weeks ago and kind of started diving into this season we're in right now, that was one of the things that you had actually brought up to me, and I'll let you talk about your side of it in a second. But I know for my side, it kind of caught me off guard a little bit. You weren't asking me for a divorce or like
Yeah.
what I thought. It was almost like you just needed to be reaffirmed
Yeah.
that that's not an option.
Yeah.
Because if you go like we establish in our vows, like we're in this till death do us
Right.
part. But I think it is good to remind your partner in the rough seasons, hey, I'm still in this. We
Yeah.
might not like each other right now,
Yeah.
but like divorce still isn't an option for me. And I think that just gave you, because you had even said, I'm not going to divorce you,
Right.
but it feels like it might be on your mind. And
Yeah.
so it was like just reaffirming
Yeah.
that conversation. But I wanted you to tell your story.
Yeah.
from
It
that.
just it was like consistently like day after day of us both being very unhappy. And I think I was getting to the point that I was like, I am not going to live my life this unhappy.
Right.
And I don't know what that looks like, but I need to see a change,
Yeah.
And I also believe that, and this is going to be probably hyper spiritual, but I believe that was the enemy's like foothold
Yeah.
of like getting that crack in the door
Yeah.
of having, and I'll admit that was my shortcoming. And I believe that over the past few months, honestly, we both have kind of not been great at reading and praying and doing what we really need spiritually and being close with the Lord, especially as a couple.
Yeah.
And I think that is playing a big role in the issues that we're having.
Yeah.
Then when it really started to get deep with us, I think I was just having an emotional time and letting myself fall into those emotions, and that the enemy was just like, I bet I can just play on this idea
Yeah.
of, well, not that she's going to ask for a divorce or not that he's going to ask for one, but maybe at one point it might become an option at some
Yeah.
point. And you, of course, were like, no, we've never allowed that to be an option in our marriage. We love each other, and we said we weren't even going to use that word
Yeah.
in our marriage. And I think it's very true in the Bible. there's a verse that says a cord of three
Yeah,
strands.
Ecclesiastes 4:12.
Yeah, I think it's a cord of three strands is not easily broken.
Mm-hmm.
And that is very, very true. Ecclesiastes is like one of my favorite books, which is like probably, I don't know, is a good thing because it's kind of depressing, but
Yeah.
it's very real. And that's really true because I think if I was just one strand, I would have been broken in that
Yeah.
one moment. But because we were three strands in that time, thank God,
Yeah.
we weren't broken in that moment.
And I like that you said 3
Yeah.
because like there is the third part of this, right? I think if we didn't have our foundation with Jesus, I think that there are couples, not all couples, but there are couples who, if they hit some of the roadblocks that we hit, that would have been an option for them.
Right.
And I'm not, and this is not by any means, my mom, both my parents are divorced and remarried.
Yeah.
And even my step family, there's divorce and remarriage. So this is not by any means bashing people who have gotten divorced or anything like that. This is just stating for couples who are trying to make it work.
Yeah.
It is okay to verbally, and it is honestly, I would encourage you to verbally tell your partner,
Yeah.
I'm not leaving you. And
Yeah.
if let's say you're not married and you're dating,
Yeah.
tell them like, I know we're going through a rough season. Address
Yeah.
the elephant,
Yeah.
but I'm not leaving. I'm still in this. I still want, and just
Yeah.
that reassurance.
Yeah.
And whether you're the guy or the girl, go tell your partner.
Yeah.
Like, hit pause and call them, text them, Snapchat them, DM them, and tell them, hey, I know things aren't great right now, but I'm still in this.
Yeah.
And just that reminder that you're on the same, like, we're on the same team. We might not be on the same page, but we're on the same team. Brings so much just relief
Yeah.
and pressure off the situation of
For
like, now
sure.
we're back on the same team again. I know we're on the same team again because it can feel like we're not.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So I think bringing up like divorce at the beginning of this, I don't want this to be like, how did we like not get a divorce or like scoot by
Yeah.
the divorce? Because I think we had this one brief conversation of like, no, that's not what we're entertaining. We're not entertaining that idea. And that released a pressure off of both of us, and we both started to attack and put our energy towards something else.
No, absolutely. And like I said, no, we never once I never even thought it was, but like you had said, the enemy had put a thought in your head of maybe he's thinking about it.
Yeah.
And so just talk about it.
Yeah.
Just address it and just say, hey, I'm good if you're good, and
Right.
let your partner reassure you that you're good.
Right.
But that being said, we want to let you guys in a little bit on what's going on.
Yeah.
And this isn't like we're not live, so this isn't like a therapy session.
Right.
But with something that heavy out of the gate, we do kind of want to let you guys in a little bit as our friends and as our community, what is going on in our lives.
Yeah.
A bunch of things have happened, and I put this down first. A bunch of small things. There
Yeah.
hasn't been one big thing. No one's had an affair.
Yeah.
Nobody's killed someone
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
like did something
I think
in
that's
sin.
the biggest thing is like this would be a whole different conversation, a whole different episode if there was unfaithfulness in
No, for sure.
the conversation. But like I think like that's one part of a marriage like
Yeah.
failure or
How
struggle.
to handle that.
Yeah. And then there's also 1,000 other little things that build
Yeah,
up in a marriage
and
that
I think.
are
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No,
cut you
that's
off.
it.
But I think when we talk about that, there's the separation of like my marriage is struggling because somebody broke our vows, somebody
Yeah.
broke our covenant, and then our marriage is just struggling because it's a tough season right
Yeah.
now. And I think a lot more marriages fall into that spell.
Right.
I think there's a lot of podcasts, a lot of content, and a lot of Bible verses about what to do with those big key, like heavy hitters you talked about with like unfaithfulness, death of a loved one, like all of those things. We can clearly find those in the Bible. And if you can't Google it, like it's out there. It's a lot more of a gray area of like, well, nothing happened. I
Right.
just kind of, here I am a year later, and I feel like I don't like you as much now
Yeah.
as I did a year
Right.
ago. You know,
Yeah.
what do I do when I love my wife or my husband,
Yeah.
but I don't like them?
Right.
What do I do with that?
Yeah. Or I've just been negligent in our marriage, and
Yeah.
now I've looked back and I don't know how to talk to them, and I don't know
Yeah.
how to be their friend anymore. And
Yeah.
maybe you're struggling with your identity,
Yeah. And so I think the biggest when I say like it was a bunch of small things, not one big thing. Uh, I started to kind of write
Yeah.
down where things started to change, and it really does go back about a year ago. And we're not going to recap the last year of our
Right.
lives, but a big one was we did have a daughter.
Right.
And so for us, we met at 16. You were 16, I was 17. We
Mm-hmm.
started dating at 18 and 19, and got married at 19 and 20. Or a few days
Yeah.
before I turned 20. We were both 19 on our wedding date,
Yeah.
but we've known each other literally since high school, and now here we are, 27 and about to be 29.
Yeah.
We have a 1-year-old sleeping. I hope she's asleep
Yeah.
anyway.
She should be.
In the room over. We went from living in our parents' basements to this is our second home.
Mm-hmm.
So much life has happened.
Right.
And the last kind of big life shift was we had a daughter. We had a
Right.
baby a little over a year ago. It was our firstborn. She's absolutely incredible. But that began this seismic shift in our life because now every single priority is changed except for Jesus, marriage. But now it's not work. It's
Mm-hmm.
not friends. It's not like she jumped line on everybody.
Right.
And as far as like emotional priorities, that's how it goes. But if we can be honest with like time and energy,
Yeah.
she's circumvented everybody.
Right.
She takes the majority of my calendar.
Yeah.
The majority of my physical, mental, and emotional energy is trying to raise and love this kid. And I think you would agree
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to on paper, like where do my priorities lie? It's Jesus, marriage, Jesus, myself, marriage, parenting. Okay, let me look at your calendar. Let me look at your text. Let me look at your bank statement.
Yeah.
Those are where you're thinking. And like that's not bad.
Right.
That is by no means an issue, but that was the first kind of big shift for us
Yeah.
of really starting to see changes in each other.
Mm-hmm.
Going from being my girlfriend to my fiance to my newlywed wife to my 5-year wife to now a mom.
Mm-hmm.
Like, bro, we went from high school to
Mm-hmm.
mom
Yeah.
together. We went from high school to dad
Yeah.
together.
And when you have a baby, like so many things change so quickly. And you have, like, especially in our scenario, we had no clue what we were
Yeah.
doing or how we wanted to do it. That we were kind of, and like, I think I was talking to somebody and I was like, I thought because everybody said your marriage is going to change. It's going to be
Yeah.
hard after a baby. I thought that was going to happen right after a baby.
No, for sure.
But we were just in like survival mode after having
Right.
her, that it didn't happen. Like we were just like, but I think it was like those bad habits that we created right after she was born of like all of our energy just goes towards her. And then when she goes to bed, we just like veg out and like,
Right.
like I just need a moment to myself and then I crash and fall asleep.
No, for sure.
And we're not pouring into each other at all.
Yeah.
And like, dreaming with each other anymore and asking, like getting to learn each other anymore. And like that's where some of these struggles started to come from,
Yeah.
It was just a lot of just, like I said, just survival
Yeah. And I
at
think
the beginning.
I think it's okay too for a season. Like everyone's different. We were fortunate enough. Joe was born extremely healthy,
Mm-hmm.
but she did have a stomach issue for a
Yeah.
little bit, so it made sleep and eating very challenging.
Yeah.
There were some issues with nursing
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. And so I think for a short season, it's okay to be in that
Yeah.
state of like,
Oh, yeah.
hey, sweetheart, we're just trying to get by right now. Where we got, and I put it on here, we went from having a baby to having a toddler,
Mm-hmm.
and we were still living like we were in the newborn phase.
Yes.
And not that we are any less tired.
Yeah.
I'm still just as tired.
Right.
Maybe a little less because she sleeps through the night now.
Yeah.
But like emotionally,
Yeah.
I'm still, if anything, the older she gets, the more emotion she
Right.
takes out of me.
Yeah.
And so I think we just never had the conversation. Like at
Right.
first it was like we're in survival mode, and then we got out of survival mode,
Yeah.
and it was still like
There was
this is just easier.
there was no priority shift for us.
Right.
It continued on of she's priority all the time, no matter what.
Yeah.
And that is great in a sense. I think at the beginning, that's what's necessary for a newborn because
Yeah.
she relies on you so much.
Yeah.
But eventually, she doesn't need you as much. And our marriage needed us more.
Yeah.
And we never
We never restructured
we
anything.
never restructured anything.
Yeah. So we had a baby. who's now a toddler.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing I wrote down, our income
Yes.
decreased. I'd have to do the exact math, but I know it was over 70%.
Yeah.
I was making over 2/3 of our money,
Mm-hmm.
and I went from working to being fully unemployed for like 4 months.
Yeah.
And I feel like I did the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
People in the comments might disagree. I don't care.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I felt like I put our family first because the
Mm-hmm.
job I was at, we were working
Yeah.
5, 6, 7 days a week,
We
8,
were
10,
always
12
in
hour days.
agreement on
It was
that.
brutal. And so when the
Mm-hmm.
holidays hit, I said, hey, I know I don't have another job lined up yet, but I'm going to miss Thanksgiving
Mm-hmm.
and Christmas if I'm working here.
And we were
We had
smart with,
savings,
we had
yeah.
smart enough with our money that we had built up that
Yeah, but
enough for that.
our plan was to be off November and December. I was going to take 2 months off, and then January 1, I was going to hit the ground running again.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me till end of February. I applied for, I think, over 200 jobs.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just entry level or just
Right.
like management level like I was at before. I was applying for it. I got denied for a part-time cashier job at Lowe's.
Yeah.
So I know people in the comments talk all the time about
Yeah.
young people just applying for jobs they're not qualified for.
Mm-hmm.
I was a manager at a warehouse,
Yeah.
and I couldn't even get a job as a forklift driver at a warehouse.
Yeah.
So,
You tried to go back to an old job that you were the supervisor for.
and I wasn't qualified. And I ran the department, and
Yeah.
I wasn't even qualified. And I worked at that company for 6 years.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Our income, so we have a baby, we have a toddler, we're not prioritizing each other.
Mhm.
Our income drops dramatically.
Yeah.
Your hours went up.
Yeah.
So now we're working more for less money.
Yeah.
Um,
And with that, with your career shift, your passion changed, like your
Yeah.
purpose. I mean, a career has a lot of purpose driven
Yeah.
for an individual. So you basically cut that out for
Yeah.
you, and you gave it up for your family, which is, noble and kind, and we will always appreciate that. But also, like, I know, like, I get so much fulfillment out of my job, and like that, that's hard. That's hard to
yeah.
do.
Yeah. And it's the only career field I'd been in since high school. I had worked my way all the way up from part-time forklift driver to building manager, operations manager. And then we just walked away from it, which
Yeah.
is fine. But it was just tough.
Yeah.
So I'm going through an identity crisis, both as career, financially, as a husband, as a provider, all of these things.
Mhm.
We looked at moving to downsize our house so
Yeah.
we could afford our bills. We tried to sell some cars,
Yeah.
a car.
Yeah. One
just-
was already paid off.
yeah, just like different things like
Yeah.
that. And the longer that time span went of every job telling me no, no one's interested in the house,
Yeah.
no one's interested in the car.
Yeah.
I'm literally, and not that this is bad, but I went from making what I was making to I'm door dashing for like $40, $50 a day,
Yeah.
wondering how I'm going to keep a roof over y'all's head 6 months from now.
Yeah.
And so I'm irritable, I'm frustrated.
Yeah.
And that was January. Here we are, we're recording this now, third week of April.
Yeah.
I didn't even get my job. I didn't even start my job until March 4th was when
Yeah.
I started. And I'm currently only working part-time. Like, this
Yeah.
was the first job that would even give me an offer letter.
Right.
So I work part-time right now, trying to go full-time,
Yeah.
just to help make our ends meet a little bit. And
Yeah.
so that created so much financial stress.
Yeah.
And we can say, like, oh, it's just finances. But finances affect grocery shopping,
Mhm.
date nights, eating out,
Yeah.
going and hanging out with your friends,
Yeah.
going and even just going to do like a self-care day
Mhm.
is like, well, you don't have, we got $10. Like,
Yeah.
quite literally, we have $10
Right.
to last us till the end of the week.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
hard.
And we were just like constantly just talking about this all the time. Well,
Yeah.
we don't have enough money for this, and we don't have enough money for that, and like it was just
This is
just
weight.
just negative conversation after negative conversation, and like it was like almost felt necessary, but draining.
Yeah,
Very,
absolutely.
very draining.
And so we've been going through that. The baby, she's a little over a year now.
Mm.
I went through the 7 months, her first 7 months of working all the time,
Yeah.
and then 4 months of can't find work.
Yeah.
And now we're in 2 months now
Mhm.
of we're kind of making ends meet.
Yeah.
We're good now, like as far as like keeping our home and stuff.
Right.
But We don't quite have that cushion that we were just used to having, which is a
Yeah.
whole nother adjustment.
Mhm.
To go from like don't even really have to check the bank account
Yeah.
to
We're good if we just do bare necessities.
yes.
We can't like
If we want to go out to eat,
but
it's
like
an
there yeah,
issue.
like there's things that like she needed a new car seat and we were
Oh my
like,
gosh.
how are we going to scrounge up enough money to go get a
Yes.
car seat,
Yes.
and like those are the things that like those are conversations that
Yeah.
we kept on having and we're like would cause arguments between us of
Yeah.
well, how are we going to do this, how are we going to,
Yeah.
and then we almost always felt like we were attacking each other because I
Mm-hmm.
felt the pressure of, well, just go teach another class, or go get like a real job,
Yeah.
even though you've never ever said that to me. You've literally
Yeah.
only said the opposite.
Yeah.
And then you were always feeling attacked of like, go get a job. And you're like, well, I'm trying, even though I've never said that either,
Yeah, yeah, no, you feel these assumptions
Hmm.
and then these pressures from your
Yeah.
partner. And then the other thing I put in here outside of the marriage part is the family and friends pressure. Because we didn't just broadcast to everybody that we now have no money.
Right.
And so the humility to have to tell people like, "Hey, you want to come out to dinner after church on Sunday or lunch after church?" And it's like, "No."
Yeah.
And it's not that I don't want to, it's that like, and how do you say that? I
Right.
mean, let's be honest. Like we can say like you just say it.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think it's
when it's a party of 10 and you're the 2
right.
and you have to look at all of your friends and go, "Nope, y'all have fun."
Yeah.
And then someone goes, "I'll watch Joe so y'all can go." And it's like, Joe's not the problem. Like
Yeah.
it was
And it's almost easier when, like, because we have had no money before and it was kind of like always expected and like you just got used to it.
mhm.
But to have had it and
And it-
people expected you to have it and then
yeah.
to no longer have it, like that's what's much harder, I think,
Yeah.
for me, anyways,
Yeah.
and
Well,
that's probably pride and everything else.
well, you feel
But,
this pressure of like, I'm trying to enjoy dinner with my friends and I'm just worried about are we splitting the check or not.
right.
Let's just be honest. Like
Yeah.
I like or when they say, "Y'all want to go to lunch?" and I go, "Where are we going?"
Mm-hmm.
If we're rolling to CC's, I'm in.
Right.
If y'all are going to Olive Garden, which here in Tennessee is like top of the line,
Right. We go there for birthdays only.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, well, then I can't go,
Mm-hmm.
So like just that whole, I don't want to get hung up on the money, but like that play, I think I don't want to downplay how big of an impact that has
Yeah.
on the rest of your life and every single decision you make.
Yeah, I mean,
When you're
the
tight on
number
money, you
one
feel
reason
it.
for divorces is finances,
Right.
and I felt like we were feeling the weight of that in the season.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so all of those things came crashing down about 2 or 3 weeks ago. No one event happened. I honestly couldn't even
Mm-mm.
pinpoint the day. I just remember feeling this feeling inside of like, I don't want to be around you.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is about you. Things are even on the up and up from where they were 2 months ago,
yeah,
like we just shared. But the thought of being around you is pissing me off right now. I don't want to be anywhere near you.
and mine wasn't really pissing me off, or like wasn't like irritating me,
Mhm.
but it was. I was like, I'm just gonna be so drained to be around you. It was exhausting to think about
Yeah.
hanging out with you, and like I think anybody who knows us listening to that would be kind of like amazed because, or maybe like that's a big word, but
hmm
we're not those people.
Yeah.
We love being around each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's almost kind of annoying. Like
Yeah.
we're almost never, if we have the opportunity
We're
to be
together.
with each other, we're with each other.
Absolutely.
And so the fact that we were like almost rather be anywhere else than with each other, I think was kind of the light bulb for us of like,
Yeah.
what is really happening right now.
Yeah. And I wrote this phrase down because you looked at me and you said, I feel like we're strangers right now.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I know you as an individual,
Mm-hmm.
but like I recognize your face, but I don't recognize you if that
Yeah.
kind of makes sense.
I feel no connection.
Yeah, like, it's like I have memories of us, but currently in this moment, I feel like I don't know you.
Yeah.
And I felt like I knew you, I just didn't like you,
Yeah.
And I think that's honestly probably the same feeling is like I don't like this new you, and I don't want to get to know this new you. I just
Yeah.
want you to go back to the way you were before.
Yeah.
And that was where we were at for a long time, and we would say that to each other. I just wish you were like you were before. I
Yeah.
wish I was like I was before.
Yeah.
And the reality is, you're not. You can't be who you were before.
You're right.
I can't be pre having a baby Eric.
Nor do I want you to be,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it was in a counseling session before we started couples counseling that she said that to me. And it kind of like took me a while to actually like I don't know, like to eat that up. I don't know like what the word or verbiage for that is, but I was like I kept on saying I want things to go back to how they were. I want things to go back to how they were. And she's like, you don't though. You want things to like things are going to be so much better now.
Yeah.
You want things to be better than they were before.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, no, like things were so great before. Like I want them. And she goes, but things have changed now for the better. You
Yeah.
just have to learn how to enjoy the things now for the better,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. I think you're wrong, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I can't, like I said, I can't go back to pre having a baby version of myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's not good for me. It's not good for you. It's definitely not good for our daughter.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to learn how to be happy
Yeah.
and content. And it's not faking. It's not malicious. It's not like talking myself into being joyful. Like, because I am happy. It's the perspective. 90% of my life is great, but because I'm tight on money, it's hard to enjoy hanging out because all I'm thinking about is how expensive the gas is going to be in the car because I know I'm going to have to fill up in the morning, or like, you know what I mean? Like any number, I don't want to get into all the examples, any number of things though. But it's like, I can't go back. Imagine if we got married and then I wanted to live my life like not married Eric.
Right.
We would have a ton of fun until I talked to another girl.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And so like growth is good.
Yes.
Change is good. We just have to learn how to change. And when you're like us, and I think a lot of our listeners are, if you get married young, or even if you don't get married young, if you've just been married for a while, you've had friends for a while. Let's talk about like friendships come and go.
Yes.
There's a reason they come and go.
Yeah.
Because people grow at different rates. People change in different ways. And we can't just be like at 20 years old, I love my life so much at 20, I'm going to spend all this time and energy trying to keep it the way it is.
Right.
You need to mature.
Yeah.
You need to develop into this new person.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I'm probably more stressed now than I have been, I'm also much more responsible.
Right.
I'm much more kind.
Right.
I'm much more patient.
Right.
I'm much more generous.
Yeah.
But I'm a lot more stressed.
Yeah.
And so it's like,
Which
we
that
can
reminds
focus.
me like
Too blessed to stress. Shout out to the merch.
right.
But no, that's good. Like, and I put that, and that's kind of at the end.
Yeah.
But like, it's good. But you can feel like you're with a stranger
Yeah.
if one person jumps before the other,
Mm-hmm.
or if you jump at the same time and land on different pages.
Yeah.
You're still on the same book. You're still on the same team.
Yeah.
We just got a little off track.
Yeah.
And it can be really easy to blame the other person for either jumping too far
Yeah.
or not far enough, instead of just going, I'm here and you're there. Where is the disconnect?
Mm-hmm.
And a big thing for us, and we're going to kind of shift into some of the wrong things that we did to try and fix it. A big thing for us was commands or demands, whatever you want to, I would say demands over listening.
Mm-hmm.
I need you to change this about you so that I'll like you more.
Yeah.
Instead of going, what do I need to change?
Yeah.
And I think, I'll be honest, you need to have the answer to both.
Right.
You need to be able to look at your partner and love them enough to say, I don't like it when you do this
Mm-hmm.
because it makes me feel whatever kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
I need you to do this instead.
Right.
To help our relationship work.
Yeah.
And I'm going to pause for a second and just say, know your own worth enough to say that.
Yeah.
Love yourself enough. No one deserves to be miserable in a relationship.
Right.
So love yourself enough to say, sit alone and go, what do I need?
Yeah.
And then tell your partner. But
Where is that coming from?
one, where is it coming from?
Yeah.
Is it for the benefit of just selfish gain?
Yeah.
Or is it for the benefit of your mental health, your physical health, your
Yeah.
relational health, your spiritual health, all those kinds of things? But also, as passionate as you are about your answer, know that your partner is just as passionate about theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And there is nothing worse than telling your partner what you need from them and them looking at you and telling you no.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. It's gut-wrenching. Listen. And
Yeah.
that was a big thing for us. We were really good at saying, I need you for this, this, and this, and really bad at hearing that and going, okay.
Right.
We would hear that and go, Well, let me tell you why
Yeah.
I talk the way I talk and walk the way I
Right.
walk. It's because you do this and this and this and this. And now we're not fixing our relationship. We're attacking each other.
Yeah.
And you can be in. I remember when I was a youth pastor, I would hear this phrase a lot. You can be in a field of victory
Mm-hmm.
or a field of right all alone.
Yeah.
You don't want to be there.
I know. Yeah.
You can be right
Yeah.
and be alone.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that your partner's always right or that you're always right. It's not about being right.
Yeah.
It's about being together
Yeah.
and saying, I know I'm broken,
Yeah.
but you got to know you're broken too.
Right.
And if we'll spend time working on our own brokenness,
Right.
we'll love hanging out with each other more. And you're there for your partner to help them see, hey, you may not know this about you,
Mm-hmm.
but when you say that, people get really annoyed.
Yeah.
Receive that.
Yeah.
And if you're with someone that you love and like you truly trust their heart, and if you don't truly trust their heart, don't marry them. If you're with someone that you truly love and you truly I trust you enough. If you looked at me and said, that's a problem and this is why it's a problem and this is what I need you to do, I have to trust that that's true. We can talk about it and we might argue about it, but ultimately I have to trust that you see my blind spots. That's part of being a partner. That's part of being in a relationship with someone.
Right.
This is what you might not see about you.
Yeah.
Let me help you.
Yeah. And I think it takes a lot of self-awareness to, I think my biggest thing is when you would come and say like, hey, you are doing this. I immediately wanted to do what you said. I wanted to be like, well, I'm doing that because of this, or actually you read into that. I wasn't doing that. I intended this,
Yeah.
and I needed to be more self-aware of and taking what you said, because almost every time I would take a step back and actually just sit on that for a minute, I could almost always see what you were saying, because you were coming out of place of, being right in some way. Like you weren't just pulling it out of your ass, was a lot of the times, was it out of maybe anger in the moment? Yes. So it didn't come across maybe as clearly as it could have been.
Yeah.
That was maybe the issue. But I think a lot of times I could have just sat down and said,
Yeah.
I'm going to take that for a minute, sit on it, and we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
And I would have been able to see more clearly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad you said that, because that's one of the bullet points I wrote down for what we did wrong. We talked about issues in the moment instead of with level heads.
Yeah.
Emotion is good, but emotion can steer too. I think good thoughts stem from places of emotion, but clear heads communicate them.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. When you're angry, you're like, your brain isn't able to literally, like our counselor was talking about it, like scientifically, your brain is not able to process thought clearly in that moment.
And you're just spewing stuff. And so one of the things we've learned over the last few years, but especially over the last few weeks, take a moment. Like, you do something that makes me frustrated. Let me internalize that and go, when she does this bothers me. But let me take a deep breath and go for a walk for a minute. So when I come communicate to her, it's, hey, I love you and I want to be on the same page with you. But when you do this, it bothers me.
Yeah.
And this is what I would like to see be different.
Yeah.
And then have the conversation.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you don't just go, okay.
Yeah.
Whatever you say, partner, like, we have the conversation.
Yeah.
And sometimes you explain to me why you do things the way you do, and I'm like, oh, well, then forget it. Forget what I said. Now I'm not frustrated by it because it makes sense. Like, whatever. But you have to have the conversation.
Yeah.
But and it's key, both of you have to be level-headed.
Yeah.
Know your partner and know yourself enough and be honest enough to just go, I can't. I need a break. And if you get in the middle of one and you need another break, always stop.
Yeah.
Because we never get where we're trying to get to.
Yeah. Which I think is the hardest part of fighting, is that being self-aware enough and being able to call it, and you both agree to call it.
Yeah.
There's almost, normally in a couple, there's always one who wants to walk away and one who wants to hash it out.
I'm the fighter.
Yes. So when I think the couples counseling was really good for us to be able to hear from a third party that, like, it is good to walk out. But what she told us specifically was to set it. And I
Set a
know
timer.
we're gonna go into this later, and I'm skipping ahead.
No, you're
But
good.
was to set a timer so in 5 minutes we're gonna talk about this, so
Yeah.
you don't think like we're just never gonna speak about it again. But also like that we get that little bit of a break to sit down, calm down, and not fester on it.
Yeah.
But anyways, but
Yeah.
yes, you both have to agree in that moment. That is the hardest part. Both of you agreeing to walk
Walk
away.
away. Give them a minute. Always be calm and level-headed when you and try and maintain that.
Yeah.
Because you're not arguing with the person, you're conversating with your partner to fix this
Yeah.
problem. That's limiting. Both of your life is limited by this
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
So let's just address it so we can both be free of it.
Right.
Talk about issues when you're level-headed. I already talked about trying to change the other person. The frequency of the conversations.
Oh my gosh, that
We
was
were
hard
doing
for
them
us.
every single day, sometimes multiple times a day, having these big, long, emotional
Over
conversations.
everything.
Everything was, what did you mean by that?
Yeah.
What did I mean
Why
by
did
that?
you say it like that?
What are you doing? Why are you
Yeah.
doing that? Like,
Yeah.
and questioning motives,
And even
questioning
now,
intentions.
like literally, like even like today, I will say today has been a good day.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I'm thankful that we're filming this today, because we are in a good headspace.
Yeah.
That's probably why this is coming across like we're marriage counselors.
Yeah, because we literally went to counseling yesterday.
Yeah, so we're in a really good space today.
Yeah.
But even today, there were certain moments that I kind of had to stop myself, because I was like, why did he say it in that tone?
No,
That tone
absolutely.
came across like he was mad about something,
Yeah.
and it's just like having not to, but yes, we read into everything and talked about everything all
the
the
time.
time.
And so daily updates aren't necessary.
Yes.
They're just not.
Yeah.
Because then you don't ever have time to not be working on it. Like you don't ever have time to practice what you're working
Yeah.
on, because you're constantly feel like you're living under this
Yeah.
relational microscope.
Yeah. And there's no room. There was no room for us to have fun and be lighthearted and to dream with each other when all we were ever doing was being heavy and serious and trying to grow.
Yeah.
Even though that's not what we were doing. And then we felt like we were trying to do that, but
Yeah.
it left no room for it. So it definitely, we had good intentions, but it was the wrong thing for us.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And then the last thing I put down here for what we were doing wrong, and you actually, this is more yours than mine, was trying to force good times, trying to force
Yeah.
good days to happen.
Yeah.
Days like today happened organically because we were naturally working together and intentionally holding back comments of negativity, encouraging comments of positivity. But don't try and make something that it's not.
Yeah.
If you're not in a great place,
Yeah.
don't force the big expensive dinner.
Yeah.
You're just going to waste your money
Yeah.
still arguing.
Or like, I think when I mentioned that, I also was thinking about like forcing like going to dinner with family when we just had a fight in the car.
Preach.
Like, or walking into church when we literally just cussed each other out.
Yeah.
There's multiple moments like that I think maybe, and it's much easier for you to kind of just shut that part of that moment off and be authentic into the next moment. And it's not, I'm putting on a fake face
Right.
into this next moment and just getting by.
Right.
And I think, like you said, this is more of my bullet point. I wish almost like I didn't do that. And I think a lot of times I didn't. I still went into like dinners with a bad attitude, or went into Bible study with crying my eyes out or no makeup on. I even walked into work and these poor ladies who just started my class are getting, like my marriage problems, and it's like, I don't know how to not do that, but here I am just forcing, these moments to happen when maybe I should have just taken a step back in some of these areas.
Yeah, no, and I never really tried to force a good day because one, I'm able to just turn it off, and I don't
Yeah,
know if that's a
which
good thing or a bad
it
thing.
irritates me.
But I can just shut it off. Like we can go from fighting to hanging out with others, and I don't care. Um, but yeah, no, I agree with you. Just be authentic with where you're at,
Yeah.
in the moment. And then that's really I don't want to
Yeah.
belabor like all the things there's much more things we could have done better.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But here are some of the things that we've been doing that seem to be working.
Yeah.
And we're still in this. So
Right.
I could give an update on
Yeah.
socials next week and say that none of this worked
Right.
and take down the episode
Right.
and everything. But we went to couples counseling. I'll be honest, we kind of have already talked about pretty much everything that she taught us.
Yeah.
The phrase of when you
You struggle with this so much.
she taught us when you
I
feel I need.
Yes.
And so it's when you do that or say that,
Mm-hmm.
I feel this way about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so as your partner, I need this to
Yeah.
change or this from you or whatever.
And we need to communicate in that way, and
Yeah.
that makes it feel like we're not attacking the other person.
And I think it's good too to do that in things that are good.
Mm-hmm.
When you hold my hand,
Mm-hmm.
I feel loved. So
Mhm.
I need more of that.
Yeah.
When you are on your phone in the car,
Mm-hmm.
I feel I'm being ignored and I'm just your chauffeur.
Mm-hmm.
So I need conversation or let's listen to music with our phones down.
Yeah.
Like, we could give a million examples,
Yeah.
but that style of communication was really big.
Mm-hmm.
The walk away.
Yeah.
Give yourself a break, but put a time limit on it.
Yeah, the 5 minutes.
The 5-minute walk away rule. And then she gave us a couple of books and things.
Mhm.
I'm not going to recommend them yet because I haven't read them and I
Right.
don't want to put my own name
I did order
on.
them though.
But
They're on the way.
we're growing together. She basically just said what we said.
Mhm.
Put your marriage back higher up the priority list.
Yeah.
When you lay your daughter down, keep doing all the things you're doing in the day. Love on her, play,
Yeah.
do all the stuff. But when you lay her down at night, take 20 minutes
Yeah.
and intentionally focus on your marriage.
Right.
And then the frequency of the heavy stuff.
Yeah.
We cut that back. We only talk about finances once a week unless an emergency comes up.
Right.
And we only talk about
Like
the heavy relationship
our
stuff
check-in. Yeah.
once a week now
Yeah.
instead of every night or
Right.
wondering when's the next one coming.
Right.
It's like I'll just make notes because I know Saturday night
Right.
we're having our conversation, you
Yeah.
know? And honestly, most couples are probably already doing something similar.
Yeah.
It's just not structured.
Yeah.
And so it creates anxiety. Put
Yeah.
a structure around it, and then it removes the anxiety of like, you don't have to wonder when you're going to be able to talk to him about that.
Yeah.
You're going to talk Friday night about,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have to be serious. Every Friday night, we're going to a different restaurant in town, and we're going to spend half that dinner
Yeah.
dreaming as a couple,
Yeah.
talking as a couple, growing as a couple, good, bad, all of it.
Yeah.
We're just going to talk about our relationship.
Yeah.
No kids, no whatever.
Yeah.
And I say every week, whatever your frequency is, but set it on the calendar and then it relieves the stress of,
Yeah.
of all of that.
And I don't think we put this on our list, but I do think it might be good to mention intimacy schedule.
Yes.
This is good for us at least, especially after having Joe. Like, and my schedule was crazy, and just like, I don't know, there's just a lot going on.
Yeah.
That I felt the need that like I needed to prep to have intimacy. I needed to know when, like, to go ahead and get in that headspace for it. So when we put it on the calendar, that was like like much more enjoyable for
Yeah.
me. And like your needs were getting met. You were happy with the schedule.
Yeah.
And I'll let you speak to that and everything.
Yeah.
And then also like talking about more in depth here lately with like all the fighting that like intimacy was a little bit more harder because we just weren't always like connecting as a couple.
Yeah.
So keeping our schedule, but intimacy doesn't have to be sex.
Yeah.
Intimacy we can stick to our schedule, but we can still be intimate with each other
Yeah.
in other ways.
Well, because like with the schedule piece of it, you would come in on those nights and say like some nights it was very couple oriented, like we're gonna be intimate with one another, and then
Yeah.
other nights it was like let's just get this over with,
Yeah.
so we can go back to ignoring each other or
Yeah.
whatever. And it was
Yeah.
like,
Or
I
there were
wasn't-
some nights that I was like, I don't like you, don't look at me.
yeah, and like it was never about these are the nights I need to have sex. It made me, especially because like I'm more of a quality time and physical touch person. It made it more of like I know this time is uninterrupted time with my wife,
Yeah.
regardless of what we do.
Yeah.
this is what I need.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it doesn't have to be sexual, but I would definitely schedule whatever your partner's love language is. Schedule time for them
Yeah.
and say like I know yours. One of the ways that you feel loved is acts of service.
Yeah.
And so I make sure on certain days of the week I have reminders to do the laundry, make sure the dishes are done, things like that, so that you know I'm not gonna forget.
Yeah.
And because that's the biggest thing. It's not that we don't want to. We
Right.
usually just forget because it's not on our radar.
Right.
It's not naturally on our radar.
Yeah.
And so I put it on there so you go, don't forget your husband wants to. I'm a cuddler. Like,
Yeah.
don't forget your husband wants to snuggle for 20
Right.
minutes and watch an episode of The Office.
Right.
And I'm over here like, okay, in order for her to want to do that, I need to load the dishwasher. So like those things, like we only got there because we talked about it.
Yeah.
And we said, when you don't cuddle with me, I feel like you don't love me, and so I need more cuddles. And you
Yeah.
said, okay, when you don't load the dishwasher, I feel like your mom,
Yeah.
and I don't want to cuddle with my son.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like, okay,
Yeah.
done. We can make that happen.
Right.
So yeah, those are a lot of the things that she taught us. And then the last thing I'm gonna close my portion, and you feel free to add whatever you want. Like I said earlier, growth is good.
Yeah.
People change. We have known each other for over a decade now. I'm glad that we've changed.
Yeah.
We've grown in a lot of great areas, but every time we've grown, it's always been awkward a little bit.
Yeah.
And so if you're listening to this, especially if you're a couple, you are not the only ones.
Yeah.
It's some might be more severe, some might be less severe. It's okay.
Yeah.
You're not the only ones going through growing pains, relational struggles, communication struggles, assumptions of one another, frustrations with one another, all those kinds of things. The key is to just keep talking, even
Yeah.
if you're fighting.
Yeah.
Keep talking. The worst thing, the biggest red flag is when you just give up. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying divorce. When you just give up and say, you know what, whatever you want is whatever I want. I don't even
Yeah.
care anymore.
Yeah.
You don't want that. They don't want that. Your relationship doesn't want that. If you have kids, they don't want that.
Yeah.
Like, keep talking. Keep going to counseling. Keep talking to your friends.
Yeah.
Wise friends.
Yeah.
Like all the stuff that we talked about in previous episodes. But like, growth is good. They're very common problems, and it's healthy.
Yeah.
The verse that came to my mind was Romans 8:28. God
Yeah.
works all things for good.
Yeah.
And I'm struggling to remember. I should have wrote the whole thing down because I don't have it memorized. But it says, to those who love God and oh man, I can just look it up. I don't know where my phone is, but
I can pull it up.
those who love God and are called according to His purpose, I think is what it says.
And we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to His purpose for them.
Yeah, and so we hear that a lot, especially in couples counseling or like dating advice, relationship advice, or even in personal life. God works all things good, but it says God will work them for good for those who love God
Yeah.
and do what He's called them to do.
Right.
And so I have to do both of those things. And one of those things, as a husband, I'm called to honor you, to serve you, to lead you in our
Yeah.
family, all of those things, to provide, like all of that stuff. And so I can sit back and say, God, I believe your word says that you're going to work all things out for good. And God's up there going, okay, but you say you love me, but you don't act like you love me.
Right.
And you're not doing anything I've called you to do.
Yeah.
I think part of God doing that is the fruit of our obedience.
Yeah.
Like there's just something, and it's not taking credit away from God, but it's saying God gave me the ability and the opportunity to love, lead, and serve you.
Yeah.
If I don't do any of those things, then I don't get to blame God when it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Like that verse, that promise has a contingency behind it.
Yeah.
Those who love Him and do what He's called them to do. And
Yeah.
so I want God to work things out.
Yeah.
And it for good.
Yeah.
And I believe that He will. But I believe He will because I put in effort to love Him
Right.
and to do what He's called me to do, which is to serve you, serve our family,
Yeah.
try and provide, try and take care of y'all. So if you're listening to this, that promise is contingent on you. And you can say it's contingent on your partner. We're not talking about them. We're talking about you.
Yeah.
And it's contingent on you loving them, serving them, praying for them, whether you're the husband or the wife, the boyfriend, the girlfriend, whatever. Love them, serve them. Know that they are going to change over time. And that is not only okay, it is good.
Yeah.
It is good. And marriage is a little different because outside of divorce, there really isn't an out. But if you outgrow friends, if you outgrow coworkers, if you outgrow jobs, things like that. Like that's good that
Mhm.
that happens sometimes, because I think God wants us to meet new people and grow in new ways. And if we hang out with the same people all the time, that's never going to happen. But when it comes to your marriage, if you are like us and you said like there is no out, like we are in this till death do us part, then you have to address the problems and you have to
Yeah.
be honest and vulnerable to talk about it.
Yeah.
But expect them. Don't be caught off guard when you look back one day and go, "Hey, you're different now."
Yeah.
It's like, well, dude, I'm almost 30.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I don't drive the 99 Corolla with the 12-inch sub in the trunk no more. I got a
Thank God.
baby,
Yeah.
I'm trying to get a Toyota Sienna.
Yeah.
Come on. I'm trying to rock a minivan over here.
Right.
Automated
Which you're
sliding
turning
doors.
28, I'm pretty sure. I don't think you're turning 29.
I don't even know anymore,
Yeah.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's good
Yeah.
that we change. So embrace the change. It's exciting.
Yeah.
But always remember, you're on the same team. You have the same goals. As long as you can reaffirm that in your partner and keep talking,
Yeah.
you guys will be A-okay.
Yeah.
I say that in faith because I
Yeah.
believe that's what's going to happen with us, but we could fight tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, and
Uh,
I think I expect us to, like I expect us to fail in some areas and pick it back up again
yeah,
and fail in some areas and pick it back up again. I know we're not going to have it perfect and but I think we have good tools and like I told our counselor the other day, I am thankful most of all that that we're on the same page about working towards our
yeah,
problems. That
yeah,
you're not sitting over there like we don't have any problems. It's just you whatever, you're just making this whole thing up or whatever. I'm not
right.
having to convince you to work on this. Because that would be a whole nother battle in itself.
Yeah,
I still think you could use a lot of these tools to work through a marriage problem too. They just become a lot more like inner focused,
yeah, yeah,
but still, like, even though we're still on the same page, it's still me. Like, I cannot focus on you. I have to
yeah.
focus on me and pray
Absolutely.
that you're going to do the same,
Absolutely.
But I am thankful that I did not have to fight for you to fight for this. And I am thankful that we have that third strand.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that is the crux behind all of this,
Yeah,
and why maybe this is seeming a little bit more hopeful than maybe
yeah,
it would have been.
yeah. No, I
So,
agree.
and then the only other thing that I had, and I think I mentioned this, I sent you the TikTok
Hmm.
of why is marriage hard?
It shouldn't be hard
Right.
if you love them.
Right. Like
Yeah,
that's just like, stitch this if and explain to me like why is marriage hard? And then everybody's just like marriage is hard because you have to plan what dinner is going to be like every day of the week.
yeah, yeah,
And it's all fun and games. I think it's, I liked a whole bunch of them. I thought they
yeah,
were hilarious,
yeah,
But also I think when this started to happen to us, I felt very isolated. And I felt
yeah,
like people told me marriage was going to be hard. People told me marriage was going to be different after a baby. But we're different because it's this extreme. Like
yeah.
this is unusual how hard this
Yeah,
is.
you had told me several times we have it worse
Yeah.
than anyone else has had it, and that's
Yeah.
not being dramatic.
Like
No one had told you what they had gone through.
right. Like I was almost embarrassed like of how hard we
Yeah,
were having it right now.
yeah,
Because I felt like we were on the verge of, talking about divorce or whatever.
yeah,
And it it was just a lonely feeling.
hmm,
And even the people that I did talk to, and they're like, no, this is normal. I just still just didn't believe it because that wasn't the majority of what I
yeah,
feel like you're getting fed in today's world.
yeah,
You hear a lot more of we just don't fight and you shouldn't struggle and
yeah,
all of this stuff. So I just want to say that at some point in whatever relationship that you have, a marriage, especially a marriage, but in a dating relationship, in a friendship, you will get off course with
Yeah.
each other. I think a lot of times that might be a jump. For us, I felt like we just slowly started walking away.
Yeah, and
And
didn't
that's
even
why we
realize it.
never even realized that it was happening.
Yep.
So whether it's by negligence of just not paying attention
Mm-hmm.
or by even an outside circumstance of like somebody losing a job or maybe having a baby or something like that happening,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to happen. And I'm not talking about cheating because that's
Yeah.
a whole nother, that's an outside circumstance that
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
is just a whole nother monster. But we have to decide every day to work towards getting back on track with each other and choose to selflessly love each other through it. And that's very hard, but
Yeah.
it's worth it. So, yes, marriage is hard, but it is worth it.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I couldn't end it any better. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for listening. I hope that this helps, whether you're in a good season, bad season, single, married, wherever you are. If you've made it to the end of this video, the end of this podcast, I hope that this gives you what you talked about, enough detail to where when you go through it, we're not just saying like, oh, marriage is tough and you'll get through it. It's like, no, like these are the practical things that you can expect. And a lot of couples do. It's okay.
Yeah.
This is a lot of parents do. Like, it's totally fine. You're not alone.
Yeah.
If you want to reach out to us, we're here to help. We're going through it too.
Yeah.
If you have advice, we'd love to hear your input as we continue to walk through this. But no, I'm just grateful that, like you said, we don't have to talk each other into trying.
Yeah.
That's the biggest piece, I think, outside of having Jesus involved,
Yeah.
is I don't have to force you to want to make our marriage better. You just want a better marriage.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for you guys for listening, for our community that is so kind and supportive. We love you guys. We love hearing from y'all. So continue to send us your emails, your DMs, those kind of things. As always, like I always give the spiel: like, follow, subscribe, comment, share. Check out the merch.
To all of our tree huggers.
Yep. We love hearing from y'all. We love the support that we've been receiving. We are on the cusp of 100 subscribers.
I know. We're
so I'm
close.
super excited for that. We'll have to get like some cupcakes or something and vlog a party or whatever. But thank you guys so much for listening. We love y'all. We'll be praying for y'all. And if you have specific prayer requests or anything like that, reach out. We'd love to hear from you. And we will talk to you guys in 2 weeks. Peace.
Peace.